And right here we are roughly 20 miles away from downtown Seattle right now. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
The heart of the U.S. nuclear weapon system resides just 20 miles from Seattle.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the lawsuit that we have going is just about that. You know, the fact that when they load, this is on the regular Tridents, you know, on the D5. When they're loading the D5 on the Submarine, I mean, there's a lot of handling on the base. One thing, they have to take these rocket motors and assemble them. And a missile is like 25%, or excuse me, like 95% propellant. A missile is, D5 missile is almost all propellant. So it's basically just a big stick of dynamite equal to 155,000 pounds of TNT. And they assemble these rocket motors, and then they take it into, they've got these different buildings that they do this assembly on. But I think it's like, there's a vertical missile packaging building where they actually take the missile and set it down in the ground. And that's, I believe that's where they assemble the warheads, put warheads on. With the missile, you know, you've got this massive missile. It appears like it's in the ground, well, in this concrete area. Do their work, then they got to pull the thing out, lay the thing down again. It's a 130,000 pound missile with the nuclear warheads on it. So they got to, that's probably a process in itself as far as handling. And then they move it on to the explosive handling wharf, and then they pick it up again. You know, they have it on a truck that's flat, and then they have to pick the missile up again and put it in the submarine. And that's the issue that we have. That, you know, the catastrophic accident would be if they dropped it, the rocket motor, you know, the propellant will detonate. So there is the capability, you know, the thing would detonate and it would spread the plutonium off the warheads at that point. You know, the Navy's pretty weird with some of their documents. When they were talking about the safety of these things, they said in 30,000 missile handling evolutions, or 30,000 missiles that they've handled, they seem to think that this is, makes us so we can sleep at night. They've dropped 2 of them. And this one was for a Polaris missile, and one was for a Poseidon. And they're a lot smaller than a D5. And the propellant isn't as volatile either. And one, I can't remember, one of them hit the bottom of the sub going 15 miles an hour, you know, because it dropped. The other one, it must have slid in the sleeve or something. It was going at a slower speed. But it was like a couple miles an hour, the other one too. Because they have the missiles inside of a sleeve and they set the sleeve with the missile in and they lower it into, it's probably about as safe as you can go. I mean, they lower the missile through the sleeve into the submarine. But the thing's 44 feet long, it's massive. Incredibly heavy, 130,000 pounds. And then you've got the other 23 missiles. Say if you've got a loaded sub and you're putting in the last one, you're dropping this last missile in with the warheads on top of it inside of a vessel that's got 23 missiles already in it with their warheads on top. And the whole thing, the propellant on the whole sub is equal to 3.7 million pounds of TNT with the nuclear warheads, up to 190 nuclear warheads. Plus then you've got a nuclear reactor on the sub on top of it. And you got these people, and you know, I don't envy them. I wouldn't want the job of the crane operator on the explosive handling wharf, you know. And you know, I mean, it's a horrible job, you know, what they're trying to do and what they're trying to accomplish, you know. And hopefully the guy doesn't party a lot or have problems with his girlfriend, you know. I mean, he's just a regular guy like you and I, and he's handling this stuff, you know, this incredibly explosive stuff with the nuclear warheads on. And he's trying to lower this stuff into a Trident submarine, and that's his job. I mean, I wouldn't want that job. So accidents can happen. We've seen them happen. They've dropped 2 of them, and 30,000 times they've handled missiles. We've seen rail cars go off the tracks. Well, they've done worse than that. I mean, the rail cars have gone over with rocket motors. Have gone off cliffs in Colorado. We've seen them coast into areas in Alabama where they got away. And it's just, you know, they've been lucky so far, but you know, how long will it hold out? You know, how long can you handle these things with such catastrophic they'd have such a catastrophic result if there's an accident. How long can you do that before there's an accident? Besides the point of whether we should be doing this at all anyway, the Navy is willing to put us at risk in order to deploy this weapon system. And it used to be, they used to do this work out at sea. They used to have tender ships. They'd actually handle the missiles out there. But it's like in the mid-70s, they wanted to be able to do this on a base. And as Kitsap County gets more and more heavily populated, I mean, as you say, Seattle is 20 miles away. But I mean, Kitsap County is pretty heavily, more and more heavily populated. Coming into this area, we see the new housing developments and stuff just looks like they're just a couple miles away. And you really start to wonder, at what point do they decide, there's too many people around here to be handling this kind of stuff? Because they could handle it at sea. They could, it's more difficult for them to do, but they can handle this stuff out at sea.